Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I am your host, Pee Wee the Plug, Big Stacks Porzingis, 1/4 through the wire, number one Knicks fan in the world, aka Mr. Know-It-All. And my gosh, we have even more news, and it's forever going off season. First and foremost, before we even get to the news, I just want to say, as an NBA fan, this off season has been like one of the best for what we're going through, what the sport has been going through with the pandemic and everything. As a fan, the time that we lost when we didn't have our sport is kind of being made up for now. It feels like we're living in a 2K simulation. Like everything is rapid. We still have rookie players who just signed deals a few days ago. There's still free agent guys who are just inking their deals. We got trades that are just now becoming official. Like things are still happening, but it's happening so rapid. The draft wasn't that far away ago. It was like a week or so ago. Free agency, and then we still now, when guys are reporting a training camp, is getting a trade like this, and then when you look up, we're only a couple weeks away from actual basketball, the real season starting, and we're days away from the preseason starting. So for me as a fan, I'm sure y'all feel the same way. I love it when it's this rapid. I love it. It feels exactly like we're in a 2K simulation, so I'm enjoying it, to say the least. But to dive in on the breaking news that we just got. The Houston Rockets are trading Russell Westbrook to the Washington Wizards for John Wall and a first-round pick that is 2023, and it's protected. So, from the Rockets' perspective, right? And I'm going to go into the Rockets, but I'm going to also talk about each player and also their team. When I look at the Rockets in this trade, because a lot of people replied to me on Twitter when I first made my reaction, and everybody was like, what do we think of this? Is this a win-win, P? Is this a lose-lose? I don't understand. What's the purpose of it? How do you gauge this trade? For me, with the Houston Rockets, I think they're put in a position where they get a guy who is going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, but a little bit more bigger now. He's not played basketball in probably around 2 years. This is a guy who still believes in himself at a high level because he's making $40 million a year. His contract says we should think of him that way. And also, now he's been traded. So you get a John Wall who's already had the chip on his shoulder, like I said, but now he even has more to prove. Then you put him in a situation with guys that he's comfortable with. If you go on YouTube, and a lot of you may know, I don't know how many John Wall fanatics that we have out here, but if you see any of John Wall workouts the past couple years while he's been hurt, you'll see him with James Harden in Miami. We already know about the relationship he has with Boogie Cousins. So, he just shot it out 5 hours before he got traded to PJ Tucker on his Instagram story. So he's going into a place where he's comfortable with guys. He knows some familiar faces. And also you're getting him in a situation where he's as hungry as he's ever been. He has so much to prove, so I like that for them. Also, what I like about them acquiring John Wall is the fact that him and Russell Westbrook, they aren't far apart in any way. You take whoever you want to take as far as who's better when healthy. But there's some things that John Wall does differently that could help the Rockets more than Russell Westbrook. John Wall is no Steph Curry when it comes to shooting the basketball at all. Never has been, probably never will be. But for John Wall to not be an amazing shooter, he gets the job done. He's never been a liability on the floor. He's never been a guy who messes up spacing or that defenses just don't guard. He's always been somewhat respectable. Even when his percentages didn't say you should, but I think his speed and his ability to get to the lane has always had guys having to pay attention to him. He's always found a way to make himself valuable on the floor to where he just doesn't have to be disrespected or just left alone. I think for the Rockets last season in the playoffs in the bubble, we kind of saw that Russell Westbrook's shot making ability hurt them, like the lack of hurt them a lot. And the thing about Russell Westbrook is he's a guy who's polarizing. This is a guy who's averaged triple doubles twice in a year. He's a former MVP. He's played at a very high level, so it's tough to change him at this point. He's older than John Wall, if I'm not mistaken. He's had more success individually than John Wall, and as a team. I mean, John Wall has never made it as far as Russell Westbrook has in the playoffs and had as much team success as Russell Westbrook has had over the course of his career. So it's hard to change a guy like Russell Westbrook or to ask him to change things because he's polarizing. I think John Wall, you can maybe change a few things from John Wall if there's something that need to be changed. John Wall has never ever in his career been a guy that's high volume as far as shooting. He's always been a willing passer, a great passer, and he's always been known to get guys paid. He's going to get guys paid for those corner threes. Guys like Trevor Ariza, they say he got Jared Dudley paid 1 year. My mind is blank, but there's more people. Otto Porter is who they say he really got paid. He's always been a willing passer. Russell Westbrook can pass the ball, but he is definitely a guy who's much more prone to shoot first. I think John Wall will take a shot if need be and can score at the basket when needs be, but he's going to look to pass first, and he's going to look to get guys involved, and that's going to always be his strength, is to make the people around him better and to get them the ball. Russell Westbrook can get you the ball, and statistically he can pass and get assists and rack them up, but his mentality is always going to be go mode, score, and attack. You know, that's why we always see those moments where he takes a three that you're like, why did Russell Westbrook just take that three? Or you look at a stat sheet and Russell Westbrook is 1 of 9 from 3. You won't really get those from John Wall. And I think that's going to complement and be better for the Houston Rockets going forward. You put him in a situation where he'll be able to put guys in position to make them better and put them at their strengths, especially a guy like Christian Wood. John Wall is going to get Christian Wood the ball and put him in a situation where he's going to get a lot of easy baskets. James Harden, don't matter who's getting him the ball, he's going to make it work for himself. And then I think Boogie Cousins and John Wall is going to make that team tight. Just that camaraderie, well, however you say it, camaraderie, whatever. It's going to bring them together. And I think that's going to be big for the Houston Rockets, because one of the things that Russell Westbrook talked about when requesting his trade was the lack of accountability and those different type of things. And I think that just happens. I think that happens with not a close-knit team. You know what I mean? I think a lot of that shit goes out the window when you're playing with your boys and y'all all riding together. Not to say that Russell Westbrook is a locker room cancer, that nobody liked each other, but I think when you have those bonds and those past relationships, it just makes you that much more tighter. And I think all of those things that I just said helps the Rockets much more than when Russell Westbrook was there. And I think that's why it's confusing, is because both of these guys are good point guards. Both of them are good. Are there better years behind them? Probably, but they both still can play a level of high value basketball, just depending on what you need from them. And I think what John Wall gives you for Houston is a little bit more what you need versus what Russell Westbrook gives you. Russell Westbrook is going to take 9 threes some games when he probably shouldn't. John Wall is probably not. John Wall is going to be willing to make those passes and get guys where they need to be and is a willing passer. Russell Westbrook, probably not. John Wall is a guy, for whatever reason, and throughout his career, he's always been able to make it work with guys like Bradley Beal as far as on the floor. Like, Bradley Beal has never had a lack of success by being on the floor with John Wall, even though John Wall isn't some crazy shooter. Like, for John Wall to not have this crazy three-point shot, he's always found a way to make it work when the ball isn't in his hands. You know what I mean? And I think you take that to Houston, and he'll find a way to make it work there to where he isn't a liability. Russell, we seen last year at certain moments throughout the season, he was just a liability, and he has that mindset of he's that guy. John Wall's mindset is I'm that guy, but I'm a pass first that guy. Russell Westbrook's mindset is I'm that guy, so I'm going to take that damn shot. I don't care if James Harden is on his team. I don't care if Kevin Durant is on his team. John Wall can be that guy while still deferring to you in situations, and I think that's going to be better for the Rockets. Now, for the Wizards, in acquiring Russell Westbrook, the reason it could be good for him and them in this situation is, number one, Bradley Beal. Washington's mindset should only be Bradley Beal. They had all the opportunity this past year and even this offseason to trade him if that's what they wanted to do. Clearly it's not, because if you were ever going to get a crazy return for Bradley Beal, it was going to be this offseason. Not saying that going forward you're going to get nickels and dimes, but I just feel like this is the highest his value will be. You know what I mean? And next year it could be the same, but I just feel like it won't get any better or any higher than what it is right now. I feel like Bradley Beal is one of the hottest names on the market that wasn't available. Like, even him not being available, he was still a hot name on the market. So for them to not trade him says a lot. They want this guy. They want to keep this guy. And with that being said, you have to please him. He's the main focus. Pleasing him is more important than them hitting their draft pick this year. And the rumor came out that he was one of the guys that pushed for this trade to happen. And the reason I believe that, and I'm never here to use my voice, my platform, or my channel to stir up any beef between players or to put false information out there or anything like that. But if it's real, I have to speak on it. And the reason I believe that now is because there are reports that John Wall was caught by surprise and or offended that the Wizards were building around Bradley Beal. Now, if you're Bradley Beal and you're coming off a year where you just averaged 30, John Wall hasn't played in nearly 2 years. You've been holding it down. You've been growing at an all-star level. We're going to call Bradley Beal an all-star because we all know he should, averaging 30 and not making it is ridiculous. So he's an all-star. You've been killing it, carrying this team and this franchise while John Wall has kind of just been not really there. We're not going to blame it on John Wall, but it just is what it is. So I can see how Bradley Beal could be like, you have a problem with them building around me when I just averaged 30 and been holding this team down and you haven't been here for 2 years? Like, what's the problem? So I can see why Bradley Beal would push for that. It's probably like, hey, I don't have time for this. This is my team. John's cool, but if that's his mentality and if he's that unrealistic about the situation, then maybe we should just go in a different direction because this isn't a championship caliber team anyway. We're better with John, but it ain't make or break. You know what I mean? So that makes me think that was real, that he pushed for this trade and probably was going for it or whatever. And I think that's the main thing for the Wizards is this trade satisfies Bradley Beal. It takes out the opportunity or any chances of a head-butting or dispute between Bradley Beal and John Wall happening. It's now Washington didn't even give it a chance. We're not even going to go into the season and allow that to happen. You know what I mean? Before these two could even beat around each other with any fucking elephant in the room or anything that could make this team chemistry go down, we're cutting it. It's all about Bradley. Bradley, you want this team. You don't want any confusion. You want it to be known as your team. Boom. Now, a lot of you might say, how do you say that? But then you just said you bring in a guy like Russell Westbrook's mentality is I'm taking that shot no matter who's on the court. The thing I say is Russell Westbrook is who he is, but the key and deciding factor is the fact that Scott Brooks is the head coach of this team in Washington. If there is anybody that'll be able to reach out to him and to get him to, I don't want to say change his game, but to defer a little bit is going to be the guy that we saw him have him defer in the early stages of his career, which is Scott Brooks. Scott Brooks had him with Kevin Durant, and we know he was playing second fiddle there. Obviously, Bradley Beal isn't a Kevin Durant, but I can see Scott Brooks convincing or having Russell Westbrook playing that same lane with Russ. You can still be you, but we're gonna hang on Brad Beal. You know what I mean? Brad Beal is gonna be our guy to get the last shot. And I think Russell Westbrook traded twice in the last 2 seasons. He has to take a look in the mirror and accept that type of role, because if not, the list of teams that could use or want Russell Westbrook just continues to shrink. Number one, the point guard position is loaded in NBA, and every year we keep getting these point guards drafted higher and higher, and they're taking up all of those roles. So just off that point, there's not a lot of teams that can use Russell Westbrook. And then what Russell Westbrook brings to your team is probably not what you're looking for either. So I think this is a situation where Russell Westbrook has to make it work. And that's why I think it's good for Washington, is because you're getting Russell Westbrook in a situation where he kind of has to make this work. You know what I mean? And it's crazy to say that because not too long ago, Russell Westbrook was the MVP, averaging a triple-double. But after being traded, a couple times in the last 2 off seasons, when you're 30-some years old, it's time to look in the mirror and say, I have to do what I have to do to keep my job or to have a place to play, because, you don't want to be that guy that doesn't want to accept the reality and have to prematurely leave the game because you just don't want to accept that, your time has passed a little bit. So I think they get him on that idea. I also think, like I said, they get him with Scott Brooks. And it's a fresh start. Fresh start is always good for a player like Russell Westbrook or any player. It just gives you a fresh slate. All of those problems and anything that happened in Houston, it's now done. It's over. It's done. It's behind him. And he can look forward to playing some better basketball in Washington. And I think a guy like Bradley Beal, who has a history of playing with a guy like John Wall, can allow Russell Westbrook to get back to playing how he played in OKC, because we do know that that's a thing that struck him in Houston, is that he kind of wanted the ball back in his hands. And as good as Bradley Beal has shown us he can be with the ball in his hands as well, with John Wall being out, we know he thrives and is as good as he is off the ball as well. That's why a lot of teams like Brooklyn wanted a Bradley Beal. The Lakers were interested in adding a Bradley Beal, not because they were going to acquire him and put the ball in his hands. No, you got LeBron, Anthony Davis. The ball is going to have to be shared. LeBron is going to dominate the ball for the majority of the game, but Bradley Beal can make it work with a LeBron. Bradley Beal in Brooklyn with Kyrie and Durant, it's only one basketball. Bradley Beal can work without the ball. So I think you bring Russell Westbrook in, you get him let him have a taste of what he's used to and how he likes to play, and you have a guy like Bradley Beal who can still thrive without having to pound it as much as James Harden. And I think they have a nice, young, exciting team. Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, Bertans is going to be a big factor for Russell Westbrook, another big that can space the floor, isn't going to clog the lane, and hopefully allow him to have more driving lanes and alleys like we saw in Houston when he was playing at his best. Winner and loser of the trade, don't think we'll really know until we see the finished product. I think we haven't seen John Wall in like 2 years. That's a big factor. How John Wall looks is going to be very important to know who's the winner or loser. I'm going to go out on a whim, and I'm going to say that the Rockets are the winners, though, because based off what I've seen from John Wall and workout videos and things like that, I think John Wall isn't as far removed from the last time we've seen him. Do I think John Wall is going to be an all-star level point guard? Probably not, but I think John Wall can still be a respectable point guard in the league and help make it work with the Rockets. Now, I don't base everything off workout videos, but when I look at injuries and explosiveness and speed and things like that, I think you can showcase that in a workout video. Now, will he be as dominant as he was in those runs? Probably not. But like I said, when you're looking at injuries, you just want to see if a player is still moving how he moves, still jumping how he jumps, still, fearless how he was, or attacking in that mode, and see how he maneuvers. Because it's one thing to heal from your injury, but the next part, the second half of recovery, is the mental aspect. A lot of players, myself included, because I had a lower body injury, the first part is just getting healthy, rehab and getting it back full strength. But then the second part, and the most crucial part, is playing without fear. When you hurt yourself, the next time you get back on the court at full health or full strength, you're reluctant to play at a certain level because you're a little timid. That's why the first time we saw Derrick Rose come back from his injuries, his shot attempts, his shooting, mid-range shot, they skyrocketed. His settling for three-point shots, they skyrocketed. Why? Because Derrick Rose was timid and more afraid of going in the lane and re-injuring his knee. Same thing with me. I went through my first few months of coming back to playing basketball, very reluctant to go down and get in the mix because you don't want to re-injure yourself. So those are going to be the big things that make or break for John Wall coming off his injuries or whatnot. But if I had to make a guess or make an early assessment of the trade, I would say that the Rockets are the winner because of all the things I named. You get a guy who's a willing passer. You get a guy who wants to be the alpha dog, but in a role where he can still be passed first. And I think that's important because, like I said, Russell Westbrook is coming with a scorer and shooting mentality, and so is James Harden, so that's going to clash. Now you have a guy who still wants to be an alpha dog, still wants to be a leader, but he's going to distribute the ball first. And then for the Wizards, it's not that they're a loser. You get Scott Brooks back with Russell Westbrook. Russell can put the ball in his hands a little bit more than when he was in Houston because Bradley Beal has played with John Wall and has thrived off the ball, and he's that lethal stretch big like Wagner, Bertans, Rui Hachimura. They can play a bunch of different ways to try to find what's out there for Russell Westbrook to play his best brand of basketball. So definitely don't want to hold y'all too long. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode of NBA Weekly. I want to know y'all thoughts, y'all opinions in the comments. If you're a Rockets fan, how do you feel about this? Even if you're not a Rockets fan, where do you put these two teams? That's my question. How much better are the Rockets now with John Wall? How much better are the Wizards now with Russell Westbrook? Please let me know in the comments. I will be seeing y'all soon because I'm sure that's not the last news we will get. Big Stacks, I'm out.